in the dark, I play my dreams. Permaculture flows like sweet streams. I'm the daddy with the know-how seed. Creating the world like it's meant to be. Permaculture, P-I-M-P, I'm the king. Wrapping up in everything. Bringing change, making it last. Join the Permaculture.
Welcome to episode 320 of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is my passion. The only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, and practical living. Oh yeah, good to be here with y'all, and great to be here on YouTube and all the other platforms. This episode, as always, brought to you by Hickory Ridge Soap from TwoOldCrowsHomestead.com.
Turn that sip into a pimp.
Bam! Living Soil Foundation. Yeah, we had a little soiree this weekend. I don't know if you'd necessarily call it that, but we did have something of a planting party this weekend, and want to give a hat tip as always to man. You know, like William said in his video the other day, there's always people that no matter what, man, not everybody can always make it. I get it, but man, whenever the clarion call goes out, man, Renewed Homestead's always there. Mountainside with Ken and Amy. They both have YouTube channels, so folks, go check them out. You're going to be glad you did. These are people that are actually doing the work, unlike some of the folks that William was highly critical of. So, Living Soil Foundation. We went out there this weekend just to kind of give you a brief synopsis of it. I didn't, whenever I do stuff like this, I don't really get much of a chance to do much filming. So I didn't get, and which bothers me because I wanted to get some film of Denise. Ben was laid up. He was under the weather. I mean, he's still recovering from the penile implant surgery that he was up for. And I said that because I know Denise is like, he said, what?
I thought it was a reduction surgery.
I'm joking. No, I figured Ben, he's been under the weather. I figured he'd probably laugh over something like that. So, anyway, boy, I just threw myself off with that one. Yeah, it just kind of came off the tongue there. Forgive the pun. But anyway, we did phase 2 of the planting out there. So the first time out, we put in trees and some shrubs and a little bit of this and that in terms of a guild. And the owner went out there, got more guild plants, and of course the foundation, we paid for it, and it was supplied from a place down the road, and so we had a handful of people out there, and we got it done. So I want to give a hat tip, as always, to all the wonderful people out there. Denise says, ouch. No, I had to do it. I was like, okay, I'm going to catch everybody off guard with that, folks. That's one of the keys to comedy is, throwing one of those things in there. And plus, this isn't meant to be a comedy show. So when we're able to throw in a little bit of humor there, especially stuff nobody sees coming, it's twice as funny. So I'm sure that gave Ben a little tickle there. Anyway, I'm sure he needed it. Yeah, he was under the weather. So Denise came out, and Ken and Amy and some others came out as well. So Allison from Farm Connection, along with her family. And I know David, there was a guy from Appalachian Watershed Alliance. His name was David. And I'm sorry, I'm going to be missing a lot of people. There was a lady with her son there, and everybody was out there putting foot to butt, man, getting it done. And we got it done. And now we're just going to wait on the engineers. So, we'll get that lab testing done, and then, but it sure is curious that now a whole lot of people are blowing up my phone now, son. All of a sudden, hey, nobody wanted anything to do with this at first, and now all of a sudden, man, my phone is blowing up with either people, I think, thinking they're going to slink in and take the credit for it, or I'll have to talk to you offline about some of the stuff that's going on. But anyway, okay. I ain't no dummy, and honestly, I couldn't care about the credit. The credit goes to all the volunteers and all you folks out there. So, the credit goes to all the people out there that have actually donated and made this possible. So, and it looks like we have some doors opening a little bit wider that we're going to be able to do Like, for example, one of the guys that was out there from Appalachian Watershed Alliance, he had donated to him a 2,500 gallon water truck, which if I had something like that, I could do the entire neighborhood with something like that. Now it's going to be a logistical nightmare. And honestly, I'm thinking, okay, how do I add that to the bandwidth? Because that's a whole lot for one person to do. So yeah, so we'll just have to see how this thing goes. And yeah, once again, thank you guys. And I want to thank everybody that came out there. William, you were going to say something?
Yeah, Denise's comment. Ben says he appreciates the recommendation since it went so well for you, Billy.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, not all men are created equal, Ben. Thomas Jefferson lied, bro. Anyway, I'll keep it clean. All right, so yeah, that was so we got a lot of crazy things going on, obviously in the world, but we're going to talk about some of the sane things that are happening around here. So our sheep, we bred them a little bit too late. Man, everything is going to sound like an innuendo back to the first thing I said. But anyway, the sheep got bred a little bit late. We had a gay ram that came in for a while, and then he decided he was going to go straight. And then, no, I mean, this is the first time I've ever seen a ram. You put them in there, and usually when they're in heat, boy, they go right after it. And I was like, what's wrong with this ram? It took him about 2 months before he decided to get his groove on. I'm like, come on, man, what do I need to do? Play some Barry White or some Marvin Gaye? I mean, what's happening here? He finally got around to it, and now they started spitting out the babies, and boy, they are absolutely cute. So we had one of the, okay, so here was the goal, because it's important that I kind of explain what's going on here. So the Katahdins out there, I want to mix them in with something, a smaller breed like a St. Croix, something that will maintain their body condition, because the ones we have don't really maintain condition while they're nursing. And that's one of the big things there that you have got to kind of look out for. You want them to maintain their condition while navigating this steep terrain. But I'm thinking, okay, your mom said, well, maybe it's these large-bodied sheep or larger sheep that aren't doing so well in this terrain. So I agreed with her. So we got in we started getting in, breeding some smaller guys in here, and it seems to be doing the trick. And we're going to see if they can maintain. So far, the small ones, or at least one small one so far from last year, from the ram that we got from Ben and Denise, she is doing extremely well nursing. She didn't lose any condition at all. So it looks like the strategy is paying off. So folks, you're thinking, okay, well, man, they're smaller sheep. What sense does that make? Well, you would rather have a smaller sheep that require very few inputs than a bigger sheep, and 50% of them are not going to make it, because they can't maintain. I mean, folks, when I say we're in the mountains, we are in the mountains, and we are literally grazing sides of mountains. And for them to be able to navigate that terrain and nurse all at the same time is a massive requirement of an animal. So that's exactly what the purpose was. So anyway, these little ones are popping out. And so far, so good. We had one that had twins. We had one of the smaller ones that had just one little girl. And then one of them had triplets, and one of the triplets didn't make it, but the other two seem to be doing quite well. So anyway, yeah, that's another thing. If they're not good moms, man, you got to put them in a freezer. I'm dead. I mean, obviously, when they're done nursing, you don't want to, or if they have prolapse, or all these other things that may be problems. If they can't do this unassisted, then they are not candidates to keep rebreeding with. Like Greg Judy always says, if they did it to you once, you got to assume that they're going to do it again. It's just not worth. If you don't do this, folks, you're going to wind up with a petting zoo. So anyway, son, I was thinking about this. So we had a storm come through a little while ago, and it was really curious, because as soon as the rain came, of course, all the other sheep that didn't have babies, they all ran down to the shelter, the mobile shelter, and they jumped inside. And then all of the moms stayed out in the field and acted as umbrellas for the babies, and the babies got underneath them. And then it occurred to me, it seems these sheep have better parenting skills than most of us in the United States of amnesia. I mean, think about it. You take the most docile animal in the world, and if you try to mess with this baby, believe me, you're going to see some nastiness come out. I don't care what that animal is. But, we're supposed to be the highest functioning creature on this planet, but somehow you go out there and go try to harm one of those animals, mom's going to let you have it. But we are the only people on this planet that will literally take our kids to go in there and get jabbed up with something that is experimental just because your government told you to. Yeah.
Yep.
So just like that, I just pissed off half the people here. But hey, I'm just keeping it real. I mean, I'm like, they seem to have better parenting skills than most of us in America. I mean, I don't even get it. But maybe we ought to take our cues from nature. Maybe that's where we're screwing up. So anyway, these guys are they're out there doing their things, and they're off and running. So more of the same, and I think everybody else is experiencing it. Sun's being blocked. And then the more I look into Dr. Cruz's work and Dr. Alexis Cowan, I realize why they're doing it every single day. To some extent or another, they are doing it. Or if they're not doing it during the day, they're doing it at night. What you think is a blue sky is not a blue sky. And you can always tell it right here in the mountains, where you can get really good perspective because you can see mountains in the distance. And when you look out there in the distance, you can see this haze every single place you go. Like from one side of this mountain where I live on to the other side, it's a valley in between. I mean, there are days where it's just so hazy, it's just unbelievable. And now people are really starting to lose their minds on Twitter. And so anyway, that's another little thing going on. Eating fresh salad every day, getting it out of the high tunnel. We got plenty of that coming out there. Had a salad earlier today. Had some kind of lettuce, and then spinach, and then of course radishes. Man, you gotta love this time of year, so we can get that. And yeah. So anyway, one more thing before I hand it over to you, son. And I'm just curious what other people out there think in the chat, because we need reminders to not leave a kid in the backseat of a hot car. Yeah, Mountainside with Ken and Amy just said that. Yeah, that's another good thing. I mean, it's things like that just give you pause and say, come on, man. I mean, are we, I understand what they're doing out there. I understand what's happening. I know what they're doing with the Wi-Fi. I know what they're doing with the more I examine this stuff, folks, the more I'm realizing I don't live rurally enough. I mean that when I say that, and we are, we're out here, but they're hitting everybody with this stuff right now. So one last thing before I hand it over to you, son, and I'm just curious what other folks out there think. Now, I was lambasted and criticized up one side and down the other. And by the way, for folks that don't know, if you're wondering where we've been on YouTube, we are in timeout for 2 weeks because we had a guest who was talking about silver, bring up the name of 3 doctors that were anti, shot in the arm. Okay. Just brought it up. So, if you're wondering where we're at, we're basically in timeout for a while. So if anybody wants to know, bam, there we go. So, but they didn't hit our backup channel, which is what we're on right now, along with William's channel, and of course on Rumble. But anyway, people try to take me to the woodshed when I was highly critical of Dan Bongino. Yeah, highly critical. Of course, this is not farm related, but I got to put this out there because this is I told you so. And a lot of you folks out there saw it too. So, when I could tell, I knew years ago Bongino was just Hannity light. I knew that he was a plant from the word go, and nobody wanted to believe it because it was rather convincing, especially in his show. But what really, really dug his grave, in my view, is on October 7th. Now, he was in the security industry as a Secret Service agent. And when I saw him parroting the obvious lie that anybody who's done any security at all knows that the official story of October 7th was an absolute manufactured lie. There is no way you're going to tell anybody. In fact, after it happened, I was around a bunch of Green Berets and Navy SEALs and stuff like that at Mountain Readiness. And I was asking these guys, there's not a single person in any capacity that's done any of this work, sapper, ranger, special forces, you name it. Not anybody believes that story because nobody believes that it took 8 hours for quick reaction forces to arrive in a country the size of Rhode Island. Okay. Nobody believes that. Anybody with any sense at all knows, and nobody knows that better than Dan Bongino. But when I heard him on his show, because I tuned in that day just to hear what he would say about it, and you can tell when a person's acting. You can tell. And I knew this guy was absolute sold out garbage. And then when he finally got this position, his wife, this was all over Twitter. What is the thing in this world that you're most passionate about? And he says the security of Israel. I'm like, hold on, homie. You just got brought in as the deputy director of the FBI, and you're telling me your number one concern is Israel? What happened to America first? But anyway, this polecat, along with his boss, just went out there and stepped all over their wee-wees by saying Epstein killed himself. I want to know if anybody in this audience right now actually believes that, because he was one of the ones when he still had a program. And then if you look at the sleazy way and he and Kash Patel said it, look, bottom line is, folks, these guys with that statement show me that they are officially deep state. Those and every other, name one person in the Trump administration has been brought in that is an obvious deep state who's working for somebody else. So, I'm going to take a bow here and I'm going to tell you, I told you so. Name one who is not a bought and paid for shill for another country that isn't the United States of America and has openly stated it. But yeah, these guys have openly showed themselves to be complete garbage. And if you look at how people are cook, frying, and baking, both of them on Twitter right now, I was like, okay, yeah. But sadly, that Trump derangement syndrome, it's on the left and right. I hate to tell you that. The people on the right might be more deranged than the people on the left when it comes to Trump. And I've met a lot of them. And it's like, okay, if you do good, and I've done it here in this program, if you do good, I'll give you a hat tip. If you don't, I'm going to call you out for it because I'm a political atheist. All right, son, let me kick it on over to you. Do you have any thoughts on what I just said there?
Well, there goes your third YouTube strike. That is officially kicked off YouTube. That's for sure. So just a heads up, if Permapastures Farm ever goes away, then check out the Permaculture Consultant, because I'll be sure to tell you guys where the new channel is and everything. Also subscribe to the Permaculture Pimpcast if you want to just a heads up on where Permapastures Farm might go, because they're on strike 2 right now. And strike 3 is permanent ban from YouTube. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I mean, what I really want to say, we can't even say on YouTube. Yeah, that's the disappointing part, is I can talk about pretty much, there's basically 2 topics that I can't talk about on YouTube openly. And one of them is what you got your second strike for. And the other one is what is going to cause the third strike, basically. Yeah. People are asking, do you have a backup channel?
Well, right now the best place to find us, if you can't find us on YouTube, we're going to start uploading again to Rumble. I know Rumble sucks in so many different ways, but it does have its advantages. Now, I will say also on Rumble, there's a lot of shadow banning going on there. So if you don't already have that channel, they're never going to give you alerts. I mean, now when Bongino was on Rumble, you wouldn't get bombarded with ads, but every other channel out there that is critical of the powers that shouldn't be or the things that are going on, you'll see a commercial every 3 to 2 minutes sometimes. I mean, people like the Dollar Vigilante, people like Max Egan, I mean, you name it out there, that Navy SEAL that I can't think of the name of right now. There's so many people out there. Look, I've said it before, y'all. Doing the right thing doesn't mean you keep a job, okay? And I'm an American first. And, we tend to forget that First Amendment means, I just don't understand why more people aren't speaking up. I mean, if you have a platform, it seems incumbent upon me to use it to raise awareness about what's going on. I mean, otherwise, what are you going to do? Die in place? It seems like everybody's afraid. Anybody with any footprint at all is like, well, I don't want to lose my channel, or I got a wife and kids. And it's always funny. The ones that say that most are always guys. I never heard a woman ever tell me that. I've never, ever, ever heard a woman say, well, I can't stand up. But it was always the women who had my back. So, yeah, it was always the guys, the big tough guys that want to act like blah, 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 that are the last to actually stand up for anything. So, look, I'm going to tell you the way I see it. I really don't care about the consequences. I mean, I was looking for a job when I found this one. So if it means I go back on my tools and I do something else, okay, well, maybe that's how the Lord would have it. But if I see an injustice, I think it's my responsibility, especially if you have any voice at all, to say it. Yeah. Does it cost me money? Yeah. I can sit here and play the games like so many other people do and, be just fine. I can sit out there and fake cry on here and do the whole 9 yards, but I'm not going to do it. I would rather be the poorest dirt farmer in all of North Carolina and still bear my integrity than, but I just don't understand how so many people are just not saying anything. I understand some folks are saying it in the circles they can, but it's always the folks with a bigger footprint that are afraid to say anything because I got a wife and kids. Yeah, so do I. And you hear me saying stuff. I have grandkid, you know, I have responsibilities. I got goldfish, you know, I got animals. I got things that everybody else has too, you know, and I'm going to speak up and I'm going to stand up. But on the same token, I understand why folks don't, because you know what? What good does standing up do for Edward Snowden? What good does standing up do for Julian Assange? What good does standing up do for all these people that were put in an early grave trying to wake up a public that couldn't care less? So I see it on that end too, you know, but people don't say that. People don't say, I can respect, hey, yeah, I'm not going to stand up because these people couldn't care less anyway. I totally respect that. But to sit here and use your wife and kids as shields for everything you don't do, that's the reason you ought to be standing up. So I'm going to get off my soapbox, son. So
like I said before in a previous video, or one of the earlier videos I did last week, like if you were all walking on a trail and you see a snake off to the side and you don't tell the people behind you, hey, there's a snake on the side of the road or on this trail, and then somebody gets bit by it, it's your fault because you saw the snake and you didn't warn anybody behind you.
Yeah. I mean, it's what it is. I mean, I understand. I totally get the position of people that say, look, man, I'm not saying a word because it's going to take starvation to wake up this population. I really believe that, by the way. I mean, I really do. I really think it will take the crucible of really hard times. We've become so depraved in a public that I really think that I can't believe how long suffering the Lord is with us when you consider what's going on right now, and nobody cares. The things being done in our name as a nation, and nobody cares. The things being done to our children, and nobody cares. That's why I started off saying, you know, when I picked up these sheep and I was like, okay, the mom's acting like she wants to ram me. I was like, wow, what a protective mother. Huh? What a protective family here, you know? Why don't we have that? Why aren't we doing this? You know, so yeah, and you know, honestly, these animals seem to behave better than most people. So anyway, what's going on in your world, man?
So right before getting on here to do the live, I was out making my own DIY tomato steaks because those wooden like inch by inch steaks for tomatoes are like $3.50 a piece over at the feed store. So I'm not spending $3.50 a piece, especially when you have like 20 plus tomatoes. So I just got done taking some. I already have some trees down at the property that I'm thinning out for silvopasture. So I took some of those branches, cut them into steaks basically, and then pounded them in the ground and used those as tomato steaks. I made a video on it that'll be coming out later this week. Also filmed a video talking about the difference between permaculture and regenerative agriculture and how that it's not really a difference, and regenerative agriculture is just a tool within the toolbox of permaculture. If you heard me say that, then you heard the whole gist of the video minus some like more details and everything. But I'm about to hit the road. I'm going up to Conifer, Colorado here pretty soon. So if you guys live in Colorado or on the way between me and Colorado and you need a consultation, then hit me up. Kind of excited about that. I'll be driving through Colorado Springs, so that'll be interesting to see how, you know, what it looks like now since the last time we were in Colorado. And most of that trip is going through Texas. Most of that trip is going through Texas. I did want just to. What was that?
No, sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there.
Oh, you're good. I did want to raise awareness to what's going on in Kentucky right now. I was just texting Jason Sparks earlier, and he was saying like there's been some crazy weather going on in Kentucky, and they've been getting hit like crazy the past couple years. Not just this year, not just the year before that, but they've been getting floods and storms and damage like crazy. So I don't know. After I get back from this Colorado trip, I'm going to see if Grindstone is heading out there to do any kind of relief. At least it's not on the other side of the Mississippi. So I might be heading out there, might be bringing some people with me to head out there. I'll let you guys know for sure if I am heading out there, and if anybody wants to join along or fund any of the disaster relief, then I'll be sure to let you guys know. But as far as the weather goes here, they have been predicting storms since I want to say last Wednesday, like severe storms. We get those severe storm warning alerts from the Weather Channel. It hasn't rained at all until last night, and we got a quarter of an inch, like just sprinkling basically. Over the course of 8 hours, we got a quarter of an inch. Man, I don't know what's happening, but like all the storms that they're predicting to hit us has just been like disappearing, going away, and going further north for the most part. It's definitely odd weather. And then also in Kentucky, they're supposed to be getting more storms tonight, according to Jason. So y'all just, and also nothing on the news about it. Nothing's going on with the news. I wonder how many like precious metals they have up in Kentucky. I know they had coal at one point. I wonder if they have any lithium or cobalt or anything else that they use to make batteries.
You better believe it. Son, to that point, you know, there's a lot of talk and people that are absolutely watching this stuff like a hawk as far as with these next rad radar towers and what's going on right now. And it is happening in a big way all over this country. And there's a few people like Into Thin Air and a number of others that stay on top of this thing in a big way. And it's showing that all of these storms right now are yeah, I know it's spring. Trust me, y'all. I know about hurricanes, tornadoes. I grew up in Oklahoma, okay? I think I know about tornadoes, okay? But these things are being multiplied. They're being combat multiplied by next rad radar towers and, you know, the crap they're dropping from the sky. All these things are working together and they can direct this stuff. They've been able to do this since the 1940s. And then in Vietnam under Operation Popeye, and then the stuff they have right now, but you can't get John Q. Average Citizen to even examine this information. Hence, going back to what I said a moment ago, why people are saying, look, I'm not going to put myself in the crosshairs, but at the same time, the crosshairs are on you. So it's in your best interest to look into this stuff. And don't give me that cop out. Oh, there's nothing I can do about it. Well, you can't do anything about Brad Pitt, but you know everything about him. Can't do anything about your favorite singer out there. Who's that little beanpole that everybody keeps going on about?
Which one?
Has a body like a 12-year-old boy. Oh man, that
doesn't narrow it down.
Couldn't sing, couldn't hold a note if it had a handle on it. That Taylor Swift. I'm like, I don't even understand this. But anyway, yeah, I don't even know where I was going with that one. But anyway, hey, Alabama says, I think I need to address this one. It says the Lord has been long suffering for worse than what's going on today. I don't know if I'm so sure about that. I mean, if you go through and examine the Old Testament and all the things that were going on, whether they were throwing their children into the fires of Moloch or, you know, some of the most dreadful things that were unfolding right there. You look at all that was going on. And I think when the history books are written, there is no empire in the history of humanity that has done more dread on this planet than what we are and what we have done. I hate to say this. Look, I'm saying this as a former soldier, y'all. I mean, I'm saying this as a person who is just appalled by what I see my government doing and the apathy of the American people. I mean, don't tell me we're not an empire. We got 900 military bases in 130 countries. Rome wished it was that kind of empire, okay? We are an empire like nobody's ever seen. We foment wars all over this planet. We turn our backs on genocide. We're doing all of this, and John Q. American public couldn't care less. You know, we see a hurricane happen to somebody down the road, and well, didn't happen to me. We're the NIMBYs, not in my backyard. No, I think, and you look at the modern fires of Moloch are these clinics all over, you know, every state, county, you name it. We just call them something different. I think, honestly, I don't know. I mean, that's why I said I don't know for sure, but if there was a society in history that was more corrupt and depraved than what we have right now, I don't know. And trust me, I'm something of a historian. I don't know of it. I've looked. I've searched. I mean, yeah, there were some really, really dreadful things that went on, but you look at the scale and what's happening. I mean, you think about it. Under Operation Condor, just that alone, do you know we've toppled nearly every single head of state under Henry Kissinger and the ilk like him? Everybody in South America and Central America, we murdered all their leaders. Look at all the leaders that said no to the COVID. There were 3 of them. I just posted it on Twitter today. All 3 of them came up dead as all get out. All of them. And who do you think was responsible for that? I mean, folks, we live in the United States of amnesia in the worst kind of way. And I think...
Well, look at okay, so if you go back to the Old Testament, what were all those tribes wiped out for? Like whenever the Israelites were leaving Egypt and then they were going to the promised land, look at what those tribes were wiped out for. Every single one of them, genetic manipulation. What are we doing now? What was that jab about? What did that do? The mRNA vaccine. Like that was all genetic manipulation. We're following in the footsteps of all those tribes that Israelites wiped out whenever they're going to the promised land. Like it's the same exact thing that we're doing. We're just, it's not. And if you want more information on that, go to Genesis 3:15 and then read all the way up to Genesis 6 and then go to Exodus, and then you realize like it's all tied together. The incursion happened before and after the flood. It says so in Genesis 6. And that's exactly what we're doing right now. We're still messing with genetic manipulation. Look at the food. The food is genetically modified. The animals are genetically modified. The injections that we get or we send our children to go get is all genetically modified. And now they're doing it out in the open with CRISPR.
Well, son, take what Dr. Cruz and a number of others are talking about. And by the way, thank you, Brenda. She says, yeah, shitting Skittles and farting rainbows over here. I bet YouTube lets that through. Absolutely. How about that? Yeah. So we can make comments like that and wow, no problem at all. But man, once you really start speaking truth. So folks, this party may have to go over to Rumble, and if we can make a live show out of it where we can do even call-ins, I'd be absolutely tickled over something like that. Because it's one thing to read your comments, but man, I would really love to hear your voices say it and, do it like a regular old-fashioned radio call-in show. And once we do get the bandwidth to get that squared away, I think people will be blown away by it. But yeah, son, I couldn't agree more. It's a protracted suicide, but it's happening in a different modality. So most people don't even pay attention to it. And then going back to the thought I was saying is that you look at what they're dropping from the sky. Mike Adams is testing it right now. You look at Dr. Jane Ruby and what she's talking about, and all these things work synergistically. And then by blocking out the sun, it inhibits your ability to make vitamin D in a lot of places. And most people they have limited windows in which they can do it anyway. You may work in an office environment or a factory or whatever the case may be, or on a construction site where you're inside and you have limited access to, outdoor light. So when you do get that, there is a reason why all of this stuff is unfolding right here at the same time. But look, we got, there's ways in which we fight back, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So with that said, hey, y'all, Redemption Shield 10% off with promo code PERMA. I'm G'd up from the feet up. You know how that means grounded, folks. Wave Watch, Billy 100. Bam. If you want one of those, I wear it. If you see me out and about, folks, you better believe I probably got this Wave Watch on. So Billy 100 will get you $100 off of that. Harvest Right, that ends on that deal they got going. You can find a link for that in our description box, but that's going to end on May 31st. And Homesteaders United Jamboree is going to have an early bird. They got it going on right now, $50 off with Billy 50. And by the way, folks, I'm not going to be at this event, but that is the discount code if you are going to attend. So, son, we got time to make sure we get into our main event. I'm going to get right into the good news. I didn't do it last time, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But the NIH urged the National Institute of Health is urged to study Trump derangement syndrome as a political hysteria that fuels national division. Man, I don't know what's up with me today. So anyway, I would say it needs, if you're going to do an accurate study, look at the Trump derangement syndrome, or you can call it Trump delusional syndrome on the people on the right. But the people on the right, there is nothing this guy can do wrong. Absolutely nothing. I think they are every bit as nutty as the people on the left. I really do. I'm like, okay, how do you have Bongino and Kash Patel? How do you have this chick who's their boss talking about all these awful things that Epstein did, but no arrest, no nothing, and you're not going to see any, folks. So And even still, somebody will tell me that this is 5D chest. All right, the other good news, chemical food security, FDA to actually start doing their job and remove chemicals that cause cancer and reproductive harm. Huh. Gee. Okay, so we'll call that good news. But if you're in combat, you're trained to shoot at the enemy that poses the greatest threat. That means the one that's closest to you, right? So, I'm all about getting rid of, red dye number 7 and all this other junk in there. Yeah, I'm good start. But why don't we talk about the elephant in the room? Nothing. Bobby Kennedy, who turned out to be a total snake. I guess that's 5D chess too. Why don't we talk about here's a couple of elephants in the room. How about the crap they're dumping from the sky every single day? The barium, the strontium, all that stuff. How about talking about that? Or, forgive my use of the words that I can't use, but it might begin with, okay, I'm going to speak phonetically to a degree. Mike, Romeo, November, Alpha. Okay? Those things that are in, that are still out there. Okay, so you're not recommending them anymore, but they're still available. Okay? That's like selling strychnine on a store at the at a little kid store. Okay? I mean, good night. We don't deal with those, but but at least that's good news, I suppose. And then here's number 3. I'm gonna get a kick out of this one. Pentagon confirms 1,000 transgender service members to begin separation process under new ban. Now,
What?
Okay. So we got a bunch of trans testicles that your tax money made possible. Okay. I kid you. And you know what? And to be fair about this, I'm equally not cool with the government paying for breast enhancement for all these women that had it done in the military. I kid you not. Guess who's paying for it? You are. I am. We're paying for that. But I'm also paying so some little marching can go get his junk chopped off, and so he can sashay around in a woman's outfit. I mean, seriously? I mean, I'm paying money so some little freakazoid can go get his cock and balls chopped off? Are you kidding me? I'm paying for this? I mean, I'm saying, okay, you know what? I'll raise a red flag when it's deemed, but hey, you know what? Don't let good Lord split you. And honestly, it's not even that. It's really the government's fault for even allowing it. You paid for 1,000 trans testicle surgeries out here. Are you kidding me? But you don't have money for grandma and grandpa down the road who are flipping coins to figure out whether or not they're going to eat cat food or take heart medication. This is the kind of garbage I'm talking about, man. I don't even know how people aren't with pitchforks ready to take the whole thing down right now.
This is another one I'm not even going to try to monetize.
Hey, son, the last time you said that, they let it go. They don't get me on this kind of stuff. They get us on, some little sleazy stuff like, oh, he brought up the name of 3 doctors, man. They get me on that kind of stuff. They don't get me on the, I don't know, the things that I thought when I was in there throwing out the N-word the other day. I think y'all know what that word means. When I was throwing out that word the other day, wow, was even able to monetize that video. I couldn't even believe it. But they'll get me for some sleazy. That's what I'm saying, man. I'm throwing caution to the wind, man. You hit me with your best shot, man. I mean, my heart ain't pumping Kool-Aid. Go find us on Rumble. I mean, if you're meant to find us or we're meant to find each other, well, that's where we'll have to do it because, you don't even know how to prepare for stuff like this, son. When they're hitting you up for something a guest says that has absolutely, you brought up the names of the doctors, not even what they were doing, but their names. You take it down off of Permaculture's farm. You gig me over there, but on this YouTube channel, absolutely nothing. So apparently it wasn't that egregious. It's just we're being targeted. And if I'm going to be a target, I'm going to do it just like John Hancock. I'm going to be the biggest signature right there on the thing. But I ain't going down without a fight. So, hit me with a shot.
The New York redneck says, is the N-word neighbor? It depends on the neighborhood.
Yeah. There you go. So that's one of the N words as well. All right. So we don't have anything from Eric. He's out there. He is up to his elbows doing all kinds of stuff. And he was actually featured on a, go check out Eric Sider, his YouTube channel. Eric was actually featured on out in San Diego on one of their news channels for, doing what he's doing out there, building these food forests and stuff like that. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, so Eric is kind of up to his eyeballs doing a lot of that stuff right now. So we don't have any wisdom for him to drop. Maybe he's going to put out some Easy E this time. Last time, so he hit me. I hit me like a ton of bricks there. So anyway, EMP Shield $50 off with promo code PERMA. Yeah. So everybody seems to think we've crossed the finish line, and I think I've provided over many, many programs at this point that we are not even close, folks. You are in greater peril now, I think, even under this Trump administration. I think you are under greater peril now, and I think I'll debate anybody that says otherwise. I think you are in greater peril now than you've ever been. And I'm not saying just in terms of an EMP or some of these other things, but honestly, the real biggest threat on your homestead and your farm, your house, your neighborhood, whatever, believe it or not, is power outages through lightning strikes. That is the most likely thing that happens, and it happens. So if anything happens and it gets past that transient voltage surge suppressor called an EMP shield, and it gets downstream and Kentucky Fries anything in your house, they're going to cover you for 25 G's. That's, folks, be honest with you, as almost a 30-year journeyman electrician, that's why I reached out to EMP Shield. They did not reach out to me, nor that any other advertiser here. I reach out to them because if they got a product I know that works and they stand behind it, look, I'll stand behind them. So EMP Shield, $50 off with promo code PERMA. So I wanted to do a show that was a little bit different and a little more empowering. And, we always look at things in terms of how we are being attacked, okay? We always do that. But we never, ever, ever think proactively, and I include myself in this clearly, because we're all trained to do this. We never think about how we're taking the fight to them. So that's why I said the permaculture war against big pharma. Now, I'm going to have to speak a little bit cryptically on some of this stuff, but I'm thinking, okay, well, how do we bring the war to them? How do we change it on their heads and make these people be the ones thinking, reactively instead of us? Well, first of all, your food is your medicine. I got a list of stuff here, and we're going to bounce this back and forth, but your food is your medicine. I mean, we're talking about nutrient-dense, homegrown stuff that can prevent and reverse, to a certain extent, a lot of these chronic conditions that you have going on right now. And think about what Big Pharma profits from. Things like diabetes, heart disease, inflammation, all those things that happen, they make a big, big profit on there. But guess what? It's kind of hard to make you a patient or a lifelong, because think about it. You can rob and kill a person only once, but you can steal from him again and again. And that's exactly the model that Big Pharma goes after. Okay. So that when they hit you with something like a cancer, which is, by the way, the biggest moneymaker in every hospital out there, if they can hit you with something like that, well, what are they doing? They're robbing you again and again, especially if you don't know that you have options. But think about this. You're out working on your garden. Okay. Let's say you got a 9 to 5 or whatever. And, you're hearing about some of the things we're putting out there in terms of getting vitamin D, maybe getting that D Minder app and all these other things. Maybe you did do like I did when I was still on my tools. I was working 12-hour days and I was still building a food forest at a construction site, for crying out loud. Okay.
And running chickens.
And running chickens in a food forest on a doggone construction site. And by the way, the food forest still exists there. These guys were apparently fighting over the peaches last year. So, it was more of a manufacturing, I won't say construction site, but it was more like a manufacturing place. But we'll call it a construction site. But yeah, I put in a food forest that's still thriving to this day, and nobody's looking after it. I mean, I put in swales out there. You can look at some of our earliest videos, and you can see that even on your breaks or whatever, well, when you're out there in that dirt, when you're grounding, even if you only have a small window in which you can get outside at your job, maybe you go out there, just take your shoes off, okay? Put your feet on the ground. Go get some of that sunlight, even if it's for 30 minutes or to an hour. That should be, for a lot of you folks out there, like you got what's called a Fitzpatrick score, okay? And it goes through 1 through 5. Number 1 would be somebody very, fair and pale. not pale necessarily, but very fair skin. And then you got 5, which would be like a Kenyan. Okay. I guess I fall in at a 3 or a 4. I'm not sure. But the darker you are, the more D you need. And so I'm saying this to give you okay, so on this D Minder app, to get the minimum of what I required, which I was extremely low, despite the fact that I work outside, I just was doing it all wrong. So I had to change everything up. To get the minimum, you needed a 40 on the scale. Right now, I'm at a 59, and Dr. Cruz says you should be around a 60 at the minimum. Okay. And I work outside and I do this, but the darker you are, the longer it takes. So some of you pale faces out there that are lighter should be able to do it less and hit the mark a whole lot easier. So you could feasibly do it on your lunch or your breaks or whatever. So yeah, your food is your medicine. And maybe you're growing some stuff out there at work, doing a little bit of guerrilla gardening when nobody's looking. Maybe you're eating some of that stuff. Son, you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, by nature of growing your own food, just to recap what you were just saying, but by nature of growing your own food, if you do it wisely, you could be grounding at the same time, just moving animals. Depending on where you are, sometimes it's not safe, but just by moving your animals, maybe try to do it in the middle of the day when you're going to get the highest amount of vitamin C, or not vitamin C, vitamin D. Whenever you're out there in your garden, instead of wearing gloves, maybe just use your bare hands and start grounding as you're gardening and stuff. Like weeding could have a whole different perspective now. Maybe view it less as like, oh, I'm out here weeding, or I'm just out here taking care of my plants as I'm, grounding and all that. But yeah, like a lot of this, just by nature of growing your own food, you're kind of taking care of your own health care with the vitamin D, the grounding, and then also you're growing super nutrient dense food. I remember Eric Sider a while back said, like all these like popular superfoods and all that stuff isn't the best food for you. The best food for you is going to be the stuff that's grown by you in your yard or in somebody else's yard, but the stuff that's grown by you is going to be the most nutrient dense food that you can grow, especially if you're making high quality compost and your plants and your animals and all that are super nutrient dense. That's going to be the best food for you, especially whenever you're out there grounding and getting sun at the same time. And if you're doing that, I mean, you don't really need big pharma after that. You could probably stop any medications that you're on, especially if you're growing if you're eating what you're growing. If you're eating what you're growing, and you're kind of using that as your main source of food, then you're eliminating a lot of the overprocessed, preservative-ridden food that they're selling at the grocery store. So by doing that, and I did a consultation for a guy over in Pennsylvania earlier this year, and his goal was to grow all of his own grains. Like he wasn't really concerned about much else, like maybe a little kitchen garden, maybe some chickens and stuff, but his goal was to grow all of his own grains. So he had a half-acre plot of corn and he had a half-acre plot of his own wheat. I think it was a hard red wheat that he was growing, but that was his main concern, is because that's the most like toxin-ridden food that you get at the grocery store. And when you grow your own corn and your own wheat, it just tastes better. It's light years better.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah,
number 2 here. Good points there. Well, before I get to that, this post from Michael says my dad took chemo and was dead in less than 6 months. Yeah. So that brings me to number 2, and I'm sorry to hear about that. But herbs like, herbal medicine can replace the pill bottle in so many different ways. In addition to that, like I said, the sunlight, the grounding, all those things are, I think, arguably even more important. But herbs like comfrey, yarrow, elderberry, garlic, echinacea, I mean, they grow easily on a homestead and can easily replace, I don't know, dozens of pharmaceuticals out there without side effects or without dependency. I mean, how many people say, oh, I got to go get my fix of elderberry? I mean, not too many people say that. So, yeah, so that's number 2. Number 3 is going back to what William said a moment ago, soil health equals human health. I mean, if you can, that's why we keep talking about compost over and over and over and over again. But permaculture rebuilds your soil life if you don't, and it only gets better. If you're doing it right, it only gets better. Same thing out in the pastures. They should be, if you're doing it right, they should get better with every single rotation. If you're doing your your gardening right, it should get better every single year. We are not in the extraction business like Jeff Lawton talks about. That's mining. Okay. And most farming, most commercial farming, that's mining. I mean, that soil health is going to obviously influence nutrient dense food in the biggest way possible. It's going to help your immune system. Big Pharma can't sell you that. I mean, anything. What do you have to say to that?
No, they can't even sell you good compost. Like,
Thank you.
they can't even get good compost squared away, and it ain't that difficult. It's really not even difficult. Especially once I mean, it might be difficult at first. I don't mean to talk down to anybody who's struggling to make compost, but once you get it down, then you're going to be like, man, I can't mess this up. Once you get it figured out, once you kind of break the ice on that, then you're going to have the different mindset of like, man, I can't mess up compost. And then once you understand the concept of compost, then you could be composting in like passive ways in the form of like chop and drop, or just grazing your animals correctly. But like all of this boils down to taking care of your soil, growing food in that soil, and then your food will take care of you. And it's a complete cycle. It's a closed loop system after that point.
Well, another big thing that I love so much and what drew me to permaculture so much was the decentralization. This is why anybody who talks about decentralization or anything about it, I'm attracted to immediately in so many different ways. So you think about it, decentralization threatens the centralized control of big pharma. When people are out there growing their own medicine, they become, forgive my use of the word, but independent. Okay, permaculture is a threat to that system in the biggest way possible. So if we can avoid chronic illness and helplessness, yeah, I know there's some things that are just tough and, you're going to have to fight through and claw and look, you got to figure things out. All of us do. And I get that. But look, this is how we stick it to big pharma in the ways that we can, in the little ways. Like I said, it's stacking functions also, like William said a moment ago. So maybe imagine me at my job, okay, years back, and I'm still working on this construction job, right? So I'm working 12-hour days in the Texas heat. There ain't no air conditioning in this place, and it is as hot as the blazes up in that place. Okay, so how many people are going to do what I did? So when break time rolls around, I go out there. You can take your boots off, go out there, put your feet on the dirt. I'm grounding. I'm also, like William said, weeding, or I'm out there harvesting, whatever it is right there. I'm getting a little bit of vitamin D at the time that I really need it most. Okay. Now, at that time, I was unwitting of the things I was doing that were actually beneficial in that capacity, but that's exactly what was happening because I had to do these things when I could. I'm working a 12-hour day, plus I was something of a supervisor there. So, I had to be really, really cautious about. But anyway, these things help to keep you out of this centralized system. That's exactly what they want. That's what this Casey and Callie means are all about. It is to provide they don't talk about the elephants in the room. Bobby Kennedy, they don't talk about the elephants in the room because they want to keep you centralized. Instead of talking about decentralized medicine, that's exactly what we're doing right here. Okay, so pharmaceuticals. All right, so pharmaceuticals by and large come from what? Petroleum, a lot of them, or they patent things that they stole from the Amazon, and
or this is a big one, snake venom.
Ooh, son. Okay, I ain't the one that got us banned. You did right there.
I didn't connect any dots. That's just a fact. A lot of pharmaceuticals are derived from venoms, from either snakes or a bunch of like cone snails.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because all your blood pressure medicine, like lisinopril and all that stuff. I mean, look at where it comes from. William is absolutely right. And the guy that cannot be named here was the one that broke that story out there. But yeah, a lot of pharmaceuticals come from petroleum. So most drugs are synthesized with petrochemicals, and permaculture reduces your, man, I hate the name fossil fuel because there's no such thing as fossil fuel. Okay. Let me just keep that real. Folks, you've been lied to. I mean, even as a kid, I was like, where did this? And if you check out the work of Colonel Fletcher Prouty, you'll find out where the whole term fossil fuel even came from. It was a psyop from the word go, and Henry Kissinger was one of the polecats responsible for it. They knew from way off, the Nazis knew from way back that oil is abiotic. The earth naturally produces it. Okay. If you think about the official story, you're telling me, I remember thinking as a kid, like, hold on, you're going to tell me all these dinosaurs died in these pockets and they turned into this juice? I mean, what? I mean,
yeah,
it never made any sense. I was like, what? Even as a kid, I was just maybe, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years old, but I distinctly remember saying, WTF? No, I did.
Hey, Dad, real quick. Since we've been talking about soils and stuff like that, there was a compost question earlier saying my compost is only 85 degrees 24 hours after my third flip. Does that mean it is basically done? And I would say no, not that soon. I would let it cure for maybe 2 more weeks or so, just to allow the fungi to develop and grow. That was from Shield Maiden for Christ. But yeah, just because it is down to ambient temperature or close to ambient temperature, just give it a little bit more time, maintain that moisture, and allow the fungi to develop, and then allow the predators to really start kicking and get that nutrient cycling going.
Yeah, you've officially composted if you followed all the protocol we tell you about. But like William said, one of your most important components, and the one that you'll never find in one of these commercial outfits, and certainly not in a bag, is the fungal component. And the only way to get that is to let it sit and let it cure. And I've shown you tricks on Patreon in which you can do that. I even did it on YouTube recently. So back to it. You know what? Big Pharma fears prevention. So preventing illness, I mean, they treat us just like Dr. Wallach used to always say, they treat you like an ATM machine. That is exactly what they want to do. And all of these doctors out there, these MDs, this is why I can't stand most MDs, is they're all centralized. They are told this is the protocol. They don't work for you. They work for the HMO. They work for whoever out there. So they fear prevention. So when we're talking about lifestyle, soil health, natural remedies, all these other proactive measures that we can all take in our lives, they don't want to hear that. They don't want, we've already been banned twice on YouTube for talking about natural ways in which we can go about doing these things. Okay. So, and then of course you consider the fact that natural healing is illegal in many places in America. Oh, but remember, we live in the freest country on earth, right? So why is it all these people have to go to places like Mexico, El Salvador, all these other places to go get healing modalities that work, that absolutely work, but you can't do them here in America? What happened to my body, my choice? But you can't do them here, yeah. So anyway, medicinal mushrooms, things like that, they're a game changer. But of course, I would use it as part of a bigger strategy. And then also think about the fact that permaculture, when you're sticking it to big pharma, it heals the land and people simultaneously. Well, that makes you less of a customer. Okay. Modern medicine isolates symptoms. Okay. We don't look at things in a holistic view, but in a permaculture world, in the natural world, son, how do we look at things? In a holistic as a system, but they don't look at the human body that way. They want to break things down in a reductionistic worldview, and that's not how things work in any system out there. So we're looking for a reductionistic answer for something that should be a holistic view, at least in my view. And you know what? Finally here, I got, you can't patent a dandelion. You can't. You can't patent the dandelion. You can't patent yarrow. You can't patent comfort. You can't patent all these other things out there, but they can take it in the lab, twist it a little bit, make you think you're getting something out there. Folks, when you get down to brass tacks, this is why I'm going to go a little sideways here for a minute. When it came to all the people that are doing soil work or fancying themselves as, soil scientists here in North Carolina, the one thing you would come up with is everybody seemed to have a reductionistic view on how to do something. Somebody would say, oh, we need to use biochar over here. That was a big one. Or somebody would say, we need to use this method over here. We need to use it was always an isolated method. And that's when I pulled myself away from all of these other people that wanted to work with me. And I said, no, I'm not working with any of you folks, because I know the solution is, it's never going to be a reductionistic solution, ever. You're not going to tell me that. Well, guess what? We're crossing the finish line and nobody else is. Why? Because they brought up one component to something that required a holistic solution. So instead of working in this central, and then that's what they were really trying to do, is put everybody work under this big group. I hate group projects, never could stand them. And they want me to work in a group project with all these other people trying to come up with a solution, when these people are coming up with a solution that's fundamentally different to my decentralized approach. So there's no way I can work with these people. So now all of a sudden the word's getting out that we've crossed the finish line, and then now my phone's ringing off the hook. And people are like, hey, good old buddy. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so yeah, what can I do for you? The point being, folks, is all of these solutions, the more centralized you become, the more you're limiting your options. That's what I mean. And permaculture teaches that, son. Am I wrong? I mean,
yeah, that was the whole reason they
sounds like everybody else, and then I'll have the same problems as everybody else.
That's the reason they wanted to keep it out of the school systems. That's why I cringe every time somebody tells me, like, oh yeah, I got my PDC from Ohio State or whatever it may be. Like, most of the time, that's not a good thing, because they're limited on telling you the actual truth or immediate updates to the system. Like, if I learned something today with permaculture regarding permaculture, I can let the world know about it today. Whereas if it's going through a school system, it has to go through review boards, it has to go through approval, it has to go through all these different bureaucratic systems. Yeah, peer review has to go through all these bureaucratic systems, instead of just telling everybody, letting them figure it out for themselves, see if it's good or if it's not good, if it works in your place, if it doesn't work in your place, and immediately getting the word out. It has to go through this filtration system. They intentionally wanted to keep it out of the colleges because of that. So yeah, if you're wondering, I get asked this a lot, and I'm working on one myself, but the people asking about doing an online PDC, just by nature of permaculture, I would avoid doing it with any university or college or anything like that. It's one thing if they're just using the college as a place to teach for themselves, like they're basically renting a room or something like that. That's perfectly fine. But just by nature of what permaculture is, I would avoid going to like a college. Like, I've thought about trying to teach over at Texas A&M satellite location in Texarkana, saying if they would just be fine with like a free permaculture club at some obscure location at night, maybe, or something like that, just to see if there's anybody that's actually interested in this, given the type of school it is, at Texas A&M agriculture. But yeah, even then, I'm still kind of cringing at the fact that I'm at an indoctrination center, trying to tell people the truth.
Yeah, but see, that's exactly. I mean, I'll never forget those days back when I was still on my tools. I would talk to any and everybody about permaculture and what it meant to me and what I was doing with it. And when they saw what I was doing right there on that job, I can't even tell you, when they started seeing, man, this guy is this passionate about it that he's out there in 100+ degree heat out here doing this stuff with a shovel. He's out here doing this all on his own. And I can't even begin to tell you how many converts it made into these systems just by them seeing me do it. So it was a decentralized, that's where it all comes down to, folks. We gotta decentralize in the biggest ways. And so you don't, for example, there's people with very myopic views when, let's say it's compost making. Well, I use person A's method for making compost. Okay, that's all well and good. But person A, like me, like you, like everybody else out there, has as many blinders on as anybody else. So you can sit there and use person A's method and you're going to get person A's results. But what if I were to go out there and train with, let's say, their rival? Let's say they're all wrong on everything but one thing. And I'm able to take that one thing, and let's say it's the right thing, because, the person I was working with before just doesn't like this person or whatever the nature. It may be a Dunning-Kruger moment that may be of profound value in your life, meaning that it could, because we've trained with so many different people, I can cut and paste the very best of everything person A has. Let's say Jeff Lawton. Okay, let's talk about compost. So I can cut and paste the very best of Jeff Lawton, combine it with Dr. Elaine Ingham, combine it with Stefan Subkowiak, combine it with Mark Shepard, combine it with Joel Salatin. And if none of those things that they offer contradict one another or pollute the other's idea, then why can't they work together? It blows my mind, because that's exactly what we've done with our orchards, our food forest, is that we've combined all the very best elements of all these different people, and we've done the very same thing with compost. So because we've done that, because we've had this wide net of so many different people we were able to train with, and because it was self-directed education, which is decentralized. You hear me throwing that word around a lot, decentralized, okay? There's a reason for it. So if we're going to stick it to the pharmaceutical companies out there, if we're going to stick it to the government, if we're going to stick it, you know what? I don't pay taxes on the food I grow, and neither do you. You know what?
Yep.
Maybe a lot of the folks out there, we don't pay taxes at all. Let's say you buy a sheep from me, and let's say, you bought it from me. I just gave it to you under plastic. Okay. You think maybe you get around FDA regs that way? USDA, all these other polecats out there with their hands out. Yeah. Do you think you get away with? I mean, this is how you become decentralized, and it always goes back to our health as well. So I'm trying to learn as much as I possibly can in all of these fields and be able to kind of disseminate what I'm learning. And believe me, folks, I'm by no means an expert on this stuff, and I don't know that I'll ever be, but I am constantly trying to up my game and examine the work of people out there who are equally as decentralized as I am in the way I'm doing. I don't know that you can be totally decentralized in everything in your life, but as much as I possibly can, in the areas in my life where I'm decentralized are the areas where I'm happiest. Okay. So anything to add?
I think you covered it all. I don't know what happened before this podcast, Dad, but you were fired up.
No, man, I was out there. I was holding these little lambs, and honestly, they just had babies. I mean, the ones are just hours old, man, and it was cracking me up. They were hours old, and they were already headbutting one another. I was like, what? And they're running up the side of the mountain, and I'm like, they're going after mom, and I was like, wow, man. I mean, boy, these babies are off and running. So I snatched them up, and I made a little video that I put on X. I'm sure some people are going to hate me for it, but I snatched these little sheep up, and I put a video on X talking about exactly what I brought up here. I did it like literally moments before we started going live here. So I just put it up on X. So Permapastures Farm on X, if you want to see what I put there. But in a nutshell, it was what I talked about in the very beginning. I'm like, how is it these animals have parenting instincts and those of us these days don't seem to have any? I mean,
yeah.
And maybe that's what fired up everything. And honestly, there's a part of me wanting to stick the middle finger to all these people, particularly. Hey, thank you so much. I just want to call you to a boob again. Thank you so much, Brenda. No, I guess to a certain extent, I just want to stick the middle finger to the powers that shouldn't be out there. You think that by canceling me for 2 weeks, or I don't know, permanently, whatever you decide, you think that's going to shut me up? I got news for you, Jack. Look, I was never, if I wanted to get 1 million subscribers, I'd go do what Justin Rhodes is doing. Okay. I'd go out there and do what a lot of these other folks are doing. I am going to, get back to talking more and more about farming and stuff, but I'm also going to be talking about the things I always talk about, things that are passionate to me, because I think they are to a lot of you out there as well. So, folks, I guess I won't belabor it anymore. I want to thank everybody in the chat tonight. You always are a wonderful group. If you can't check us out here live, of course, we always have the audio platform. You can check us out wherever you listen to podcasts. And as always, I want to give a hat tip to Renewed Homestead and all of you out there. Till next time, stay alert.
Stay alive.
This rain will roots that run deep. Wisdom from soil. Permaculture dreams. Let the ideas unfold. I'm grooving with the truth. Feeling nature's good. end. From the smallest sprout to harmony begin in the cycle of life. For the magic's alive.